Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to send a warm welcome to all of you and thank you for joining the closing plenary session. It is a final session of Q2018 conference, and we will start with a panel session entitled Quality in Official Statistics, New Opening, New Perspectives. I would like also to thank you for using the inventory application, and I would like to tell you that through this application you can fulfill the evaluation questionnaire. You can use also the website to do that. And now I would like to invite on the stage our participant on the plenary session. Please welcome Mrs. Genovefa Ruzic, Director General, Statistical Office, Republic of Slovenia. Mrs. Ineke Stup, Chair of European Statistical Advisory Committee. Mr. Marek Rojicek, President of Czech Statistical Office. Mr. Eduardo Barredo Capelot, Director of Methodology and IT Corporate Solutions at Eurostat. And Mr. Dominik Roskrut, President of Statistic Poland and the Chair of this session.
Yeah, it works. So it's good to see you all together back here in this big room, and I have a pleasure and honor to be the chair of this plenary session in which we will have a panel discussion on the issues related to the quality. So even though I know I was kind of like expected to give some kind of an introduction, I think the best way I can do the introduction is actually leave more time for our distinguished panelists to express their views regarding the quality in official statistics. So I have a set of few questions I'd like to ask all the panelists to raise hands and to answer these questions. I think issues related to the quality are very important. Like as I said a couple of times during this conference, it's basically our everyday's bread, as we say in Poland. Like, we need to do that every day. Like, we need to concentrate on quality in many aspects, in many dimensions, every day, every hour, every minute, and think about that, because it's kind of like a fundamental principle of what we do, and that decides about the value of our products at the end, and actually builds our brand and understanding of the public on how important we are and how important, reliable are our statistics that we produce. So starting discussions, I wanted to start with the first question, which is like, what are new challenges ahead of official statistics and new developments influencing data quality? I would like to particularly direct these questions to Jenny at first.
Thank you. I think in those 3 days we have heard a lot of challenges, and I would like to focus to 3 of them. First of all is about new data or new data sources. The second is about our relevance, and the third is that we have to remain trustful organization. Especially, I think maybe I will start with this, that we have to keep our let's say, trustfulness. Why? It is important for the data providers, for those who are giving us the data, so household persons and enterprises. For them is very important that we keep their data, let's say, in secret environment, in secure environment, that we do not disclose their data. So this is about confidentiality. But in another, let's say, side, we have data users, which is, for them is very important that they see us, that we, let's say, choose our, which data or which sources we use, so in the independent manner, and also what kind of methods, professional methods, scientific methods we use, and also how we deliver or communicate our data. And when I come to this, let's say, dissemination of data, I would like to, let's say, emphasize one situation with pre-release of our data. You know, we have 223 regulation, there is written all users have equal access. But unfortunately, then we weaken this, let's say, provision in the code of practice. There is written that for justified cases and in very transparent manner, we can deliver some data to, let's say, somebody in a few, let's say, some days maybe before. I think that it is not good because society, journalists and people, ordinary people see this, they have the perception that maybe politicians, especially politicians, can influence on our work, on our methods use, or maybe also some sources and so on. And because of this, I think this is good challenge in front of us that we have to discuss about, let's say, abolishment, the pre-release in the future. Yesterday, or maybe on the first day, it was, let's say, one question raised when we will revise, we will have the next revision of the code of practice, and we really can think about this. Why? Because it is very important, because the fact is that I realize that let's say approximately half of countries do not have, including Slovenia, do not have any pre-release. But let's say approximately or less than half, they still have some pre-releases. This is very important that maybe we put again in the next revision that equal access for all users should be provided with any exceptions for any politicians. Because I see the code of practice as goal. Really, that we have to go to this direction, to removing any pre-release, to be safe side, that nobody will have some, let's say, a perception that somebody can influence on our results. If this is not the case, then I am afraid that we can be, let's say, under the pressure of our ministers maybe, or prime minister or governors, because they meet other ministers in, let's say, ECOFIN Council and so on, and they discuss and they can realize that still some ministers have pre-release and we can be under the pressure. So instead of going to direction to without any pre-release, we can go in totally opposite direction, that we will be maybe in a way, how to say, exposed or forced that also those countries who do not have pre-release, we have to open, let's say, data maybe one day before. Concerning independency, I would like also to stress one very important issue. Okay, we have this independency written into 223 national laws, in code of practice, in also government had to sign commitment on confidence, but this is only preconditions that we can exercise the independency. But we have to defend our dependency almost every day. Especially, we have to be very strict and very careful about this and defend our independency in the period when we have election, or during the election, or after election, when new government is set up or new parliaments are set up, and also in some crisis situation. Because we have to be aware, and I think Enrico Giovannini mentioned in the first day that with new election there are coming, let's say, non-conventional, I think he expressed himself, non-conventional parties. And we have to be aware that also these, let's say, newcomers, new politicians are not aware of our roles, of our principles, and therefore we have to explain our role, to be very courageous with this. We should not give up, we should not even not give any small chance that they can interfere. So I think if we defend our independency, then for sure we can be really independent, we can choose our sources, we can use methods, and really we can provide public good. I will not now, let's say, continue with all other challenges. Maybe if there is also later some chance to also give my views about new data sources and also about how to remain relevant. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting. You touched a little bit upon the substance of my next question about the measures that we can take to kind of challenge these challenges. But you also mentioned a very interesting issue of pre-release, and I know among us are the representatives of the countries, I mean especially Netherlands, that had this long tradition of giving the pre-releases. I've been always like very against the pre-releases. I think that really kind of create a situation in which we are, in which our users can think that we are under the pressure of politicians. I know in the Netherlands it's not only to the politicians but also to the media, the pre-releases. So how is the Dutch experience in that matter, if I could ask you, Ineke?
But pre-release in the Netherlands?
Yeah, pre-releases in the Netherlands, because the Statistics Netherlands are doing the pre-releases.
Yeah, well, I think it's difficult for me to comment on that. I do know that they are extremely careful in this, but
have there been kind of like any issues in terms of the pre-release in the media or whatever, or kind of like a dispute about it, or whatever?
I think there's very little dispute about that, yeah. And it's a very careful procedure, and it's a very open procedure, who has access to what kind of data in what form. And I think there's very little discussion about that, in the Netherlands at least.
Okay. So if any of the other panelists would also like to reflect a little bit on these new challenges. Would you like to? Or no, maybe I'll ask the next question then, because the next question that I wanted to raise was how can we deal with these challenges? We've been actually looking at some of the presentations during the conference, especially regarding the new data sources like big data. We know that there's a lot of problems there because they go a little bit outside of the traditional scope of statistics. We have these issues of representativeness and all that theory of statistics and how to deal with that. Do you think that we have something specific in mind already on how to deal with these challenges? What measures shall we take?
Yes, I think the new data sources is the very important element that changes the statistics for the future. And statisticians are, of course, used to deal with the quality aspects of basically with the traditional data sources. And it was based, of course, on some sample surveys, and it was possible to define the quality criteria and so on, and to deal with that. And the new data sources like administrative data and big data bring new challenges, because now it's a different kind of data. It is not under control of statisticians from the beginning to the end, because they, as regards administrative data or big data, they cannot define exactly what they want. Yeah? There are some data sets. They are usually quite complete as regards the population, but they are not defined from the beginning with regard of the statistical quality, so now the statisticians have to learn how to deal with it. So they have some data, and they have to find a new method how to deal with them, how to combine with data from statistical surveys, how to they have to find the methods of some data mining and data analysis. And of course, it brings new challenges, because now you need a new a little bit different professions. Yeah? Not this traditional statistician, but you need different qualification for the people. You need that they should have some knowledge about, for example, data analysis and so on. And these people are, of course, it's a kind of higher value added, and it is not so easy to find these people. And of course, usually the people have to get this knowledge, so they need to learn, and this brings, of course, problems for the statistician, because they compete, for example, at the labor market with private companies. Yeah, for these people, they have to pay them higher salaries than they were used with so-called traditional statisticians. And of course, it brings also challenges for the IT infrastructure, because with big data, you have very high needs of capacity of computing centers and so on, and everything is very costly. And this is unfortunately together with the still persisting trend of cutting the budget, yeah, or maybe not cutting, but not really increasing, because statistics is I think considered from the side of politicians as part of some administrative burden or part of administration, and this is a trend to cut this. Yeah? So I think it is important into the future and for the future to try to convince the politicians, but also other stakeholders which are influential, that there is a really fundamental change in the environment and in the statistics, and that, for example, to finance these activities is a kind of investment which could bring in the future some benefits. Yeah? The better statistics, the new possibilities of cover some or answer some questions which the politicians or the users have. So this is not easy to work in this environment.
It's very interesting. Please, Eduardo.
No, yes. Coming a bit on this line, it is quite evident that in the area of official statistics, we are living through a change of the main paradigm, in the sense that official statisticians, we were used to a period of scarcity of data, let's say, and this is the main reason why the sampling theory was put in place. For example, how to pass from a sample to the whole population. This is what we all study in the universities. The tools that we had were not the tools that we have now. I don't know, I still know how to do I'm old enough to know how to do a square root in paper, or to use a logarithm tables, but these things that not exist anymore. But now we are in a situation where we have changed the paradigm, and the data are everywhere, and now the problem is not a problem of scarcity, but a problem of affluence. We are going to be able just to combine all these data sources and to keep the quality. And it is obvious that this will have repercussions in the national statistical offices, and of course in the international organizations as well, in the sense that we will have to change a bit the business model. We will not have all the data that we want with the characteristics that we want, and that we can control the sample size, that we can control the survey. We will have to use data from everywhere. So it is obvious that the business model of the statistical institutes will, to a certain extent, change, and this is an important issue. Something that I would like to mention as well, and I'm sure that Jenny is going to intervene, because she mentioned it in her remarks. It is the issue of relevance, and are we measuring the world as it stands now? Are we still measuring the world as we knew it 40 years ago, when trades was more important than services, when production was focalized, and now it is produced by multinational companies everywhere, where everybody was releasing publications in paper. Now we are going for digital publication in a world of social media, in a world of internet. So are we still relevant, and are we producing the information that is needed by the public? The format of these conferences allows you just to be a bit provocative to a certain extent, so to take out the log of Eurostat, but are the concepts and definitions, as we know now, adapted to the new realities? The main macroeconomic concepts, the concept of resident population, the very, very basic pillars that we have, are these concepts still realistic in 2018 with full migration of people who go to work in a different country and they return, short-term moves? So this is something that would merit some reflection to what extent the concepts that we are using now are still realistic. And in this sense, we have to see what the society is just asking from us. We can see the behavior of our children. We have them there. We are seeing how they operate, that they don't use books, that they use internet everywhere, and to try to adapt to a new reality, that it is not the reality that we knew some 40 or 50 years ago. And this is very important just to be relevant, I think.
It's very important. Neka, please.
Can I add to that? Yeah? This is my 9th quality conference, and I must say this is probably the best conference I've been to. But as a user, the concept of quality is, I always have to adjust myself to what's meant by quality in official statistics. And I have to get used to the acronyms and the work programs and the regulations. And for me, indeed, the key issue is relevance. And a former director of social statistics in the Netherlands, he spoke about the inherent conservatism of statistics, I think, and that's what statisticians do. They try to measure even better what they are doing very well. But we are living in increasingly complex and diverse societies. And if you say, which groups do we exclude? Which arrangements do we exclude? And this refers both to administrative data, I think, and to surveys. There are lots of people not in the population register, people in countries who are not in the registers of the countries. It's unclear what families are. There are people temporarily living, people living in non-residential facilities. There are survey problems with non-response, with language. People don't have ICT, people don't have the regular skills. People, even in a country like the Netherlands, I think like 16% of the people are functionally illiterate. Okay, do we measure what's going on? There are lots of topics that are difficult to measure, like, say, non-standard jobs, or what does it mean to be poor in our societies? And as users, I think, well, this is a major part of the quality of statistics for me. What is it fit for purpose, and what's the relevance, and how can we use the information?
Thank you. Please, Jenny.
Concerning relevance, I would like just give my view. I agree with those that we should not provide just data, information, but also, let's say, stories. What is very important to provide also analysis, different analysis. My experience is that sometimes, this analysis can be also one-off. Discussion outside, let's say, in the society about one phenomenon, it's very good that we look at our data existing, or maybe if we can use some new source and provide some information. But it is very important to, let's say, agree with this, that if we call this experimental statistics, it should be published separately. I'm talking from my experience because, for instance, once we publish energy poverty, but it was really poor, let's say, first attempt. What actually is it? And but unfortunately, we publish like other regular statistics in the first release. But we explained everything about methodology, insecure, and everything. But users just grab this and treat this as really official statistics. But now we have another, let's say, also experience that sometimes we are too conservative. We try to provide the best quality, and there we are doing, and we do not publish anything. The another, let's say, experience is when it was a discussion half a year, I think, before, about minimum wage. How many employees receive a minimum wage in Slovenia? And then we, let's say, just took one new source because we already before planned to check whether this is good source for this. And what we realized that it is not problem about how many employees receive minimum wage, but it was very important this distribution. Because, for instance, we take just this value which is, let's say, provided for in the law. Then we got 14,000 people receiving minimum wage. But when we just take €1 more and then €10 more, this is a really small amount. Suddenly we had 65,000. And when it is not finished, all this analysis, but we invited, let's say, the main stakeholders to the office and explained them what is the message, what we found out. So Chamber of Commerce were there, trade unions, and also Ministry of Labor. And they were very helpful too, that we gave some insight into this, and they agreed that we can continue with, let's say, this analysis. But when we discuss with them, suddenly we find out that, okay, we discuss with those three main, let's say, stakeholders. It's very good also to deliver this to others. Even it is not, let's say, the best, the final quality, but to publish also this analysis. But we learned separately, totally separately. And I think what kind of message we give with this, that we separate also our quality, that we really show our commitment to quality, that those regular or official statistics are published, let's say, normally every day, 10:30, let's say, with all this normal publication. But it's very good to give also separate information. For instance, I just now remember when I was worked in the Ministry of Labor, Family and Social Affairs, I also at that time had to decide on the basis of something. But because I was also before working in the statistical office, so I knew how to get very quickly some estimations. And I realized at that time that statisticians are too much afraid to publish something. I agree that at least we have to be sure that this, let's say, analysis is solid, but not, let's say, super quality. Thank you.
Yeah, that's very important. Please, Marek, continue.
Yeah, I think it was very important what Ginny just told. I think it's a little bit controversial between because, of course, it's correct to rely on the quality, and statisticians are very conservative, and of course they have to keep on all aspects of quality. And but on the other hand, the other aspect of this is that they are very conservative and they don't want to use some experimental things and to try to something else, because it inevitably it means that you cannot be the quality cannot be so perfect as in statistics which has some long tradition and so on. But on the other hand, sometimes you have the statistics which formally have all aspects of quality, but say nothing about today's world. Yeah, so you must take on the scale all the aspects and to find the right solution. For the users, usually the quality is a kind of black box. They usually tell it's your thing to how you compute this. Of course, they notice some aspects of quality, like if you have big changes in the revision of GDP, 1 percentage point, so it is some aspects of quality which influence them, or if there is not consistency of the indicator, for example, monthly indicators and quarter indicators. So these aspects of quality they notice and they of course, this is something what is important for them, but many aspects for quality are visible only for statisticians and not from the outside world. And it is necessary into the future to really to try to find some way not to be too conservative, to keep some level of quality, but on the other hand. To find the ways to try the new things and to keep the pace with the time with the time. Yes, so it is, I think, necessary.
Yes, so I agree that we should probably be more innovative in terms of what we publish and how we publish that and how detailed the information that we present is going to be. But then at the same time, what I think is important that we are able to communicate like clearly and transparently the quality issues so that people really understand the quality issues in behind of the things that we present. And it's very important because, as I said yesterday, sometimes we can kind of like blame our users that don't understand the things that we're publishing, all the context, little details, and but then it's our role also to kind of like explain all these issues so that they really understand the context and they can place and interpret whatever we publish in an appropriate way. So I think there's a role for both for us, and communication is a very important thing, but also for the users to kind of like engage more and more into cooperation with us. And I was just wondering, and this is a question for you, Eduardo, are there any other kinds of partnerships, not only with the users, that we could leverage and with whom to meet these new challenges?
Well, I think that it is obvious that the situation is quite clear. I think that we have to establish partnerships with many people and with many stakeholders. Just to start, we are saying that in the national statistical offices, we will need in the future what is called data scientists, so people who have a very good training in statistical maths, people who are good communicators, who have a perception for the user needs, who are able to deal with artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, smart statistics, and unfortunately, as Konrad showed in the keynote speech, and the times of Leonardo are gone, and we need all kind of profiles, and it is complicated just to get this profile in a single person. So I think that we have to develop partnerships with the academic media, for example, or with researchers, just to help us explore, for example, all these methodological issues that we have and the problems for multimode data collections and so on. So we need the input of the, let's say, academic statistics. I'm very glad just to attend these kind of conferences because they bring together different profiles, users, producers, and they hear each other, and it is a very good forum. We have, for example, the issue of data access or data just held by external companies, by telephone companies or mobile operators. There I'm absolutely convinced that we have to establish partnerships, but also global partnerships, in the sense that I think that the European statistical system should work together in this endeavor, because these companies just deal with you only if you put big money on the table, and they do not deal with individual countries. These big multinational companies, They deal with big projects, and probably we could discuss at the European statistical system how to put in place a sort of coordinated policy of data access that would allow us just to have more economies of scale and negotiating positions vis-à-vis these interlocutors. The third area where we have to establish relationships, it is the area of universities, schools. We had the students a couple of days ago just getting their prize. They were very, very proud. But we have to make an exercise of literacy, and especially in this world of fake news and alternative facts. We have an obligation just to teach our children what is the real figure from the figure which comes from I don't know where. And the final thing, it is something that we have established. It is the European statistical system. It is the partnership that we have all together, and we have to discuss all these problems between us because the dimension of the issue is so big and the problems that we are all facing are so similar that the only way that we will have it is just to discuss all together and to try to find out common solutions. So yes, this is probably one of the aspects of this new paradigm that to a certain extent the statistical offices, Eurostat, international organizations, we will have to open a bit to the external world, leave a bit the ivory towers, if I may say so, and to establish relationships with users, with students, with academia, with data providers, and we have to discuss among us how to establish this sort of partnerships with the stakeholders. But I think it is inevitable.
Yes, please, Ineke.
Yeah. And I realized the impossible position of statistics, official statistics, because on the one hand you have to publish the undistributable figures. I mean, this is it. But then, and especially I think in the area of European statistics, I mean, you cannot hide, you should not hide the fact that some statistics, some data might not be comparable or might be comparable across countries, but you have to be aware what's behind the way data are collected and what does it mean in different countries. So in a way you have to also communicate uncertainties, interpret uncertainties, and I think excellent ways are this conference, but also, for instance, the Conference of European Statistical Stakeholders in October, where you bring together research, other stakeholders and statistics. And this great European statistical competition, that was so great. And I really hope that in 2 years there will be 28 or 27 countries in this competition. There's also European Statistics Day again in October. And I think there's a lot of communication about statistics, but I think the important issue is that statistics is not the property of statistical offices, but we all own statistics. These are our statistics. And if we could convey that, it's a difficult message to convey, but I think it's important to focus on that message.
So what I think, what I see from the discussion is actually that we all agree that the role of official statistics is broadening. And we have more and more responsibilities, and we have to address the responsibilities by building the partnerships, because we cannot do it ourselves, everything, like the communications with the academics, with researchers, with students, with our users. All of these require us to kind of like open up, build the partnerships and work together, because these challenges that are coming to us are bigger and bigger, and there's no way that we can deal with them ourselves. But Jenny, you wanted to say something as I am.
Concerning partnership, I just wanted to add, I agree that it's very good also to emphasize that we also partners, we are doing and we are trying to address especially challenge concerning new data sources in partnership. Sometimes I see a lot of similarities between administrative source and new sources, but we experience that we, let's say, address the administrative sources quite long. For instance, in Slovenia case, we started to use administrative sources 20 years ago. But now still some countries have difficulties to access and to use this data. But I think that concerning new data sources, we started differently, we started jointly, and we are sharing our experience, sharing our knowledge, and also in this conference we have heard a lot of, let's say, examples, good practices, what we already done. We are also working together, Finnish statisticians, Slovenia, France, in Eurostat, a lot of work is done. So I'm more optimistic that together we will even maybe address all challenges concerning new data sources much quicker than with administrative sources, because we started very separately with administrative sources. I just want to underline also that sometimes we complain too much, that we do not have finances, we do not have staff, then we do not have enough qualification and so on. So then we deliver this, let's say, picture that, oh, poor guy, we cannot do this. But we have to be very proud. I'm so proud after this conference when I attended different sessions, because we really achieved a lot. And we also have some advantages. You know, some people said, there are a lot of other producers. They will just grab this data. They are better than we are. But we have also advantages. For instance, we can evaluate the quality of data, because sometimes we have possibility to compare with the existing sources, with existing statistics. And for instance, I have the experience, my colleagues scrap job vacancy data in Slovenia. But then they everything they compared, and they link data with the business registers and also with other sources, you know. And we could get the impression what is the coverage. And then we are thinking now what to do. It's better just to use this data for a trend. It is enough. So I would like to say that really we have to be encouraged. We should not give the impression that there is scarcity of people or finances and so on. Because if I look others, market, let's say companies, they compete with each other. But we really sometimes compete with each other, Finnish statistics, Slovenian statistics, Italian, but it's very good in a way. Whenever we achieve something new, we deliver immediately to others. And this is our strength, and we have to communicate also our strength, that together we will address very quickly those challenges concerning new sources. And I was just the last point, I was very happy when I heard Dutch colleagues in one session. He said there is really a lot of work and a lot of data sources, but we have to find our role. We cannot do everything. There are also other companies, they should do. We have to find our priorities, what we will do with different sources, what kind of statistics we will produce. Thank you.
Yeah, we are certainly responsible for something, but not for everything, and that's, I can agree on that. But I hear this capacity building issue coming back refrain all the time, and the interesting thing is, and I had this interesting discussion yesterday with Conrad, actually, that we sometimes forget about the fact that still most of our offices are part of a civil service in our countries, and it puts on us additional limitations in terms of the flexibility of how we can shape our human resources and so on and so forth. And what I heard from Austria is that they have some kind of like flexibility to put some new resources outside of the civil service schemes. And I think it's also might be one of the important issues that we should discuss in the future in terms of like, what is the placement of official statistics in the public administration systems of the countries. That's certainly something that we have to discuss, because it has some very important implications to our flexibility and to the way that we can actually address this coming new challenges that needs a lot of flexibility and a lot of agile attitude to whatever we do. And I know if any one of you would like to reflect on that a little bit, please, Marek.
Yeah, Dominic, you are absolutely right. I think what you told is very important because I think the situation is similar in many countries. We are very limited by the fact that we are a budgetary institution, and many rules, financial and other rules, are very strict. Or, of course, the limitations also in the system of which we have a personal aspects, because the people which are working are not expert, but they are clever, and they are in some very strict system of hierarchy, and a way you can hire them and fire them is very very problematic, and so on. And of course, this makes the situation more problematic in aspect of flexibility. Yeah, so. Of course, we live in the system, so we have to manage that, and we must be, I agree with Jean, very positive, because of course we have a lot of problems, but we have to be positive. We need to overcome it, and of course, even if we live in a little bit not friendly environment in many aspects, it's necessary to do it. It's true that there are many companies in the market. We are not under the pressure of the market, of course. We are in some aspects we are monopoly, and of course companies in the market or on the market, of course, they have advantage of flexibility, but they are under the pressure of this market, and they have to compete with other companies. We do not need to compete, so it has our situation has positive and also negative aspects. And what is, I think, very important, that we have the monopoly, but there is a strong trust in our institution. Yeah? So my experience, I think also your experience, is that if we tell something, so if we tell that some figures or describe the situation, for example, in economy, so usually media and so tell, yes, this is right because statistical office told it. Yeah? And this is something which brings really high responsibility, because what you tell is really taken as very serious, yeah? And it's necessary to really watch that you have this responsibility, and that what you tell have quite big impact, yeah, in many aspects.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just was wondering, because there are some new contexts around the official statistics recently, and I have very two specific questions remaining concerning these two contexts. One of them is just the whole pressure for the open data, for openness, and to provide our users with as much as possible of access, hopefully in electronic form, that we can build APIs to our users so they can download our databases, do whatever they want with the data. And another context is the context of SDGs, this global initiative, establishing a whole system, a huge system of, as we've heard yesterday, of indicators and a monitoring system of these indicators. Do you think that we can somehow leverage these two kind of new trends in order to improve the quality of official statistics? Is it something that we can use also to kind of improve our operations? Because the quality is not only the quality in behind the simple indicators. It's also the quality and transparency of the whole production process, I guess. And that our users understands how we come up with the results and how these results are produced, transferred, put together, and how the rankings are built. This also refers to kind of general concept of quality. Do you think that we can somehow kind of use these trains and just get on the trains and improve our quality in a faster pace?
Shall I? Yeah. Maybe it's not exactly an answer to your question, but I think this this access to data, open data, the APIs is very important for some users. I mean, there are users for whom statistics is a black box, and these data come from these are official statistics, and that's good enough for them, and that's right, that's okay, and they are good enough. But providing access to data is good for society, but I think could also make statistics better if people have access, try to figure out. And again, I was talking about our society becoming more complex, but also statistics has become more complex, of course. There are now multi-source data. You cannot, how do our statistics basically construed from all these different sources? It's much more complicated. But still, I think statistics should try to make this transparent, make sure that also outside users, some outside users who want to know this, can figure out how these statistics come about, what are the metadata, can comment on this and can use it. And in this way, is it related to the open data or open science movement, where you cannot just as a scientist publish a result, but you have to also publish your data, and you also have to publish your syntaxes so that other people can have a look at it. And well, I would say this would be, I mean, there are all kinds of problems with privacy and confidentiality, but there must be ways to overcome this. And I think this is a very good development.
Yeah, I think it's very important also to not to only like publish the way we, methodologies in behind our surveys, but also kind of like algorithms that we use to compile statistics and so on and so forth. Like in the form that we really create them, like in the form of codes on a GitHub and so on and so forth. It also gives like additional transparency to whatever we do, and our users then can give us more trust. And what is important, I think, again, and you all kind of like mentioned that, I shouldn't probably use that word in the context of GDPR, but because this is not a liked word, but there's something like profiling of the users. We should profile our users, because some of them just like require very basic information about the quality, and some of them are very interested in all the aspects of the statistical production. And we have to face both of these groups. We have to kind of like provide both of these groups with the appropriate information. I think it's very important. But in regard to the SDGs, what are your opinions? I consider SDGs as something like to some degree like a European Union. We have this harmonization system that we call European Statistical System. When we harmonize, we have our internal regulations. Sometimes we argue and fight about whether we should something have like an implementing fact or implementing act or delegated act. But in terms of the global system, it's even much more complicated than what we have here in Europe. And we saw that in yesterday's presentation. I think it's very interesting. Like, for example, I had that impression recently when I went to the UNECE Conference of European Statisticians, and we had this paper about all these custodian agencies. I had an impression there are more UN agencies than UN members. So I used to play this stupid statistical joke that we have a negative number of degrees of freedom in that matter. But it shows you how big the issue is and how complicated it is. And I think, is there any way that we can kind of like use that to kind of like communicate statistics better? Because I think SDGs is a good marketing way of selling our statistics, and also to improve the quality. What are your opinions?
Concerning SDGs, I think they really give us a lot of opportunity also regarding the quality. I just remember, let's say, the motto of SDGs. It is leaving no one behind. And from this point of view, SDGs also emphasize that we should not forget different social groups, but also that we have to look what is going on in the local environment. So Jennifer yesterday described this complex system when we are, let's say, delivering our data, not only official statisticians, but also some others, to this data flow coming to UN database, and then there is harmonization of this data. But anyway, this motto, leave no one behind, put us also on us a request that we have to provide data not only globally, not only nationally, but also at lower level. And I would just like to say that in this regard, it's very important to integrate statistical data and geospatial data, and we talk a lot about this. I was in a way surprised when first have heard about these difficulties to let's say integrate this data, because in Slovenia we have very good infrastructure. We have a register of spatial units, and also a national grid system was developed. But on the other hand, we also in the past produce a lot of statistics, let's say at a different level. Okay, we provided one special, let's say, stage. It is application when there is really integrated and this data and can be presented in different level. And we optimize this process. But I will not advertise this application, but I would like to say that when we finish this work, we realize that for this small grid, 100 meter, more or less is available only population data. And we have a lot of data at national data and also at regional data, but we do not have much at municipality level. And why this is not good. This is not, let's say, user-friendly, or we have to, let's say, satisfy user needs. And we have a lot of questions. What is poverty then at local level? One answer is that we provide statistics based on sample surveys, for instance, especially for poverty, and this sample is not representative lower than for the regions, and that's it. But we have to go further. We have to use also some, let's say, more difficult methods. I just have heard one of them is also small area estimation, and we have to work much more with also other methods, how to provide data which are available at national and regional level, also at local level, and this is really challenging. That actually we should much more use different methods, also modeling if should be. We have to learn this. It is also difficult as we talk about new sources. It is difficult, but we have to go to this direction. We should not just excuse us, sorry, this is small sample, and if you want to have, let's say, poverty for municipality, you have to give us more money to have big sample. No, we have to use other methods.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, please, Eduardo, you wanted to, because we're heading towards the end of the discussion.
Very briefly, I think that the question of open data is very much linked to the third one. How can users support the statistical offices in the sense that it is clear and that users have to be at the center of everything, all the communication, everything, all the production has to be centered on them. There is something that we have not discussed because we would need another panel on this. We are talking about users, but my main interest as well is in the non-users. So these people who do not look at our statistics. I don't know, I'm interested in the farmer in Andalusia with the unemployed people, and how could we, from the statistical offices, try to help these people more practically, but this is not the object. Open data, it is obviously, it is not a trend, it is already there, and we have to move towards open data, and in particular to linked open data with the transfer of the APIs and so on and so forth technically, so the machines, they can read this information. And something that we will have to discuss in the future as well, from my point of view, it is all these initiatives which are coming in many countries, but also in the European Commission, I have to say, about this e-government and the fact that the European Commission, just to give a concrete example, has an open data portal where we provide not only statistical information, but administrative data, geospatial data coming from Copernicus or from Amadeus or from all these satellites. And we are also providing quite a lot of information there. And what is the role that we as Eurostat, in this particular case, being the specialists in data treatment in the European Commission, can provide to this sort of government-related initiatives? Are the statistical offices going to be the central hub or to play a leading role in these e-government initiatives? This is something that we will have to discuss because it is an interesting issue, but it is obvious that all the institutions are moving to open data initiatives, and at the end of the day, they bring the data more transparent. We can get the feedback from the users, so it is the way just to move forward. This is obvious.
Thank you very much. So I was taking some notes, so kind of like helped me to summarize the discussion. Discussion, I think, was very interesting, and we have touched upon a lot of issues that are related to the quality of the statistical production, I would say. And I think we would all agree that official statistics, in some sense, equals quality. So when our users hear the term like official statistics, what they understand it's, oh, there's quality in behind. And our role is kind of like sustain this belief, and we need to keep them believing that this is the truth. But of course there are new data sources, new data collection methods, new products that we have to deliver to our users, and of course new communication methods, and all of this makes the things that we've been doing so far much more complicated. So it's also a bigger challenge for us to sustain the high quality standards in terms of these new developments, and I think that's a role of ours, and we have to discuss it all the time, and that's good that we have a conference like that, because this is actually the platform in which we can exchange our experiences and learn from each other on how to kind of react to these new challenges. And what was interesting in our discussions, I think it's the things that we've been mentioning is capacity building. That's very important, because what we need now in our offices are totally different skills, and we are more heavily based on the IT infrastructure and so on and so forth. And we have to react also in the way we organize our work, not just in the way that we compile new methods or whatever. This is also a responsibility on us to be more agile and use these new technologies to also leverage and to improve our efficiency and effectiveness. And of course there's a big role for the users, for example through the open data, because when they have the access to whatever we do, then they can improve and react on whatever we do, and then we could kind of cooperate in the partnership. And of course other partnerships are important as well, because we need to build these strong relations to our stakeholders, because we are part of an ecosystem. We are not just separate to it, we are part of that. So we kind of circulation system of the economy and society, and that's very important that we understand that. And of course at the end, when it comes to the final outcomes and outputs, it's important that we measure what matters, and we measure it in a way that matters. And of course we have these new challenges coming from the new economy. I was 2 weeks ago here in Krakow on the conference about the transportation systems. I'm presenting some transportation statistics, but there were other guys just presenting us with totally new solutions that I didn't even know they exist for the future in terms of the transportation system in the cities and so on and so forth. And I thought to myself, oh my God, we will have to react somehow also from the statistical point of view in kind of producing the statistics that may matter for policy building in that area as well. So measuring what matters is always important, but that brings us to the point of the value of statistics. I think the value of official statistics is not decreasing, it's increasing, because the world is getting more and more complicated, and the world needs us to kind of simplify the message and to provide something that is of a high quality standard. That's why it is so important also that we kind of try to develop and sustain these standards all the time. And as SDGs can show us, because we shall not leave anyone behind, we have more and more responsibility for whatever is being around us. So our statistics need to be relevant. They need to touch upon the most important political issues as well, in terms of how we develop our societies and economy. So I'd like to thank all the panelists for these interesting discussions, and I think that's a highest time. I know that I have some support because I know, according to the agenda, this is the time when we should give the award for the most active users of our electronic solutions.
And this time we will have a modern envelope. And I will ask you, Mr. President, to read who is the winner
So
in two categories.
we didn't know that before.
Yes.
This is
First category, the most active inventory app user.
and the award goes to Vili Pilvio from Statistics Finland. Do we have Vili here? Oh, it's so dark in the room that it's hard to see if there's... we can't see because we are inviting for the...
We will send award.
We'll send an award or...
Yes,
okay.
It's rather traditional, but...
It's this picture, I guess.
Yes,
okay.
it's
And then we have a second award as well for the most active Twitter user. And this award goes to Mirko Hertzner from Destatis Wiesbaden. We have Mirko. So we have the winner here. So maybe we'll give both the awards to... No, I'm kidding, of course. So again, we ask for some applause because this is an achievement. You've been doing a lot to kind of promote our conference, and we would like to thank you for that. And this is a little souvenir for you for being so active. And thank you very much for spreading the news. Thank you. Would you like to say something?
Oh, well, if I have to, well, thank you. It was my pleasure to broadcast at least some of the ideas mentioned here to the Twitter audience. And yeah, my special thanks goes to all the authors of these papers, because in the end you did the work I was tweeting about. So it's actually your award.
But it's, thank you very much. I've been always watching the kind of like activity on the Twitter also from Sibyl. I know whether Sibyl is here because she was always very active on the Twitter account as well. So thank you very much, because it really allows us to spread the news about the conference more widely and more quickly, and that's very important that we use all these new tools. But now I think it's a highest time to ask Eduardo, as a representative of the Eurostat, to take the floor and summarize our conference. Please, Eduardo, the floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear presidents, dear director generals, dear colleagues, friends, I think that it is obvious that these are fascinating times. We have fast change, complexity, digital society, social media. These are the key characteristics today. We have a responsibility vis-à-vis the society just to provide a vision of the world as it stands now, and according to increased requirements, and not the world as it was 40 years ago, when most of the current actors were not even born. We do not know how the world will be in 40 years, but it is likely that the main trends will continue, and the good old times probably will not come back. As I said earlier, we only have to look at our children. Innovation, agility, modernization, responsiveness, they have to be our motto. But the standing word is quality. Quality is our reason for living. It is our raison d'être. Quality is official statistics. According to the Oxford Dictionary, the term of quality, it is the degree of excellence, and excellence comes from the Latin excellere, which means surpass. So we have to be better than our competitors, and this is our main role. And we will have to do it all together. There is no other way to do it, through partnerships and through innovation. Thank you very much to all of you for this extremely successful of the quality conference, and this success just shows that quality is the cornerstone of official statistics. It is important, as I mentioned earlier, these kind of conferences with the various stakeholders are represented. We have been dealing with all the multidimensional facets of quality. We have been dealing with institutional arrangements, quality of process, quality of outputs, code of practice, geospatial statistics, multimode data collection. So really a very, very wide content that just provides an idea of the challenges just in front of us. But the common idea is that quality is the gluing factor and that we need to communicate our strengths. Of course, all the items that we have discussed are extremely relevant and they will have a consequence in our national and international organizations. We plan to take all these messages back home just to see if we can do Eurostat a better place to work, and I'm sure that you are going to get your messages also back home. Of course, the success of such an event can only happen thanks to the extremely professional, dedicated and committed staff of, in this case, Statistics Poland. And it is a great pleasure just to thank all the colleagues from Statistics Poland. It is Dominika, it is Agnieszka, it is Malgorzata, it is Eva. These people, they have names and family names which have been extremely committed and dedicated for the organization of this huge event. You can imagine what it is to organize something like this. A marvelous city like Krakow, with all the cultural and university heritage facilities, like this conference center, and the hospitality and kindness of our Polish friends can only facilitate this success. I take this opportunity also to congratulate on behalf of Eurostat, even though Mariana will be here for the centenary of the institution. It is a very important fact that we recognize. We would also like to thank all the colleagues from the scientific and the program committees, and you will allow me also just to thank all my colleagues in Eurostat who have been providing assistance for this organization. However, when the time comes and we meet here in this conference, in this place, the success can only happen thanks to you, to your active participation, via panelists, via speakers, via participants in the conference or session shares coming from Europe, but also from all the places in the world. So thank you very much to all of you for your participation. Now it is time to look forward, and the reality just requires from us, as Bob Dylan would say, just to swim and not to fall like a stone, because the times they are changing. I'm sure that you know the song. We are going to continue these reflections. Ineke has mentioned that there will be a stakeholders conference organized in the also very beautiful city of Bamberg on the 16th and 17th of October this year, where we will put together the users, producers, researchers, the main stakeholders, with a content relatively similar to the one that we are discussing. And the Director Generals of the National Statistical Offices, they are going to meet in Bucharest also to discuss the issue of smart statistics and big data. So the agenda continues and the reflection continues. Finally, I would like also just to give you a rendezvous for the next conference that will take place in 2020 in one of our member states. And you will receive more detailed information in the coming months where the event will take place and what is the time. I'm going to finish here. So, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, dear friends from Poland, thank you very much once again. Please have a safe trip back home and see you at the next edition of the Quality Conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eduardo, very much for these kind words toward us. What can I say at the end? I would like to also add some thanks to probably the same people as you have mentioned. Especially, I would like to thank the Eurostat for believing in us and trusting us and awarding us with the possibility to organize this conference. It was very important for us, and I'm going to refer to that in a moment. But I would like to also thank, maybe it's not clearly visible, but to the previous organizers of the Q conference, like in Austria and Spain especially. They've been very helpful. They really helped us at the beginning of the process, and we took a lot of knowledge, experience from our predecessors, and it's so important. And we are also offering our help to the future organizers. I can already say that, and that's very important. I would like to thank our keynote speakers, all the presenters, and especially all of the participants of the conference. Actually, you are making you're making this conference. It's not us. We're just here in the background somewhere, just facilitating it. But we are not the most important. Are the participants. I'd like to deeply, from the depth of my heart, to thank you all for coming. I know it was very important for us, and thank you again. And what I can say, like from going into all the sessions, the presentations were very interesting, and it's such a nice occasion to kind of like learn from each other, to rethink some things, because usually when we go back to the office, there's no time for thinking. We are just being busy with all the usual stuff that we have to do every day, and then that's even more important than we have the conference like that we can just like put ourselves a little bit in the distance from what we do every day and rethink the stuff that is so important and think about our future. I can tell you this conference was very important for us because when I started, I told to my staff, international engagement of Statistics Poland is very important to me, because I see that more as just like building good relationships. I think that makes us stronger, that makes us better statisticians. I'm very proud, very often, I always communicated to our ministries that my relations with the fellow statisticians from the other countries are very often closer than with the ministries within the same country, And I'm pretty proud of that, because I think we constitute kind of like community that really makes in our example, the whole EU project more possible and more valuable. And that's very important that we kind of like keep continuing this cooperation, make it stronger, more profound, so that we build the fundamentals for the better future. I think this is the reason why I also think this conference is kind of like a tool that has a bigger meaning in behind, even though it's not visible from the first sight. So that's why I would like to thank you again. I can tell you now that we've been so successful. I can see that. And my team was so successful. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank my team, and I'm going to do that internally as well later. But I think you did a great job, and I would like you to organize future events, even more events. And so you're just like, it's always like that. Whenever somebody works like in a good way, he's going to be, responsible for more and more things. Sorry for that, but this is natural. Thank you again for the trust in us and for your participation. Thank you to all of the people and the institutions that allowed us to organize that. It was a big honor for us, and we'll remember that conference for a long time, and I hope that you'll also keep it in your hearts. Thank you very much. It seems like I'm left alone here in this position, so the only other thing that I can add is that we are still having some lunch for you after this session, so please feel invited and have a good time still with us. Thank you very much.